Chosen one. Your arrival here was never the result of coincidence. And these words did not appear before you by random chance. Heaven arranged this encounter with perfect purpose, because something that has always belonged to you has been carefully preserved, guarded, and kept until this very moment. If you have wrestled with financial delays, long seasons of silence, or questions that seem to have no answers, know that they were never signs of rejection. They were part of God's preparation. Whatever God chooses to conceal remains beyond the reach of every enemy, and whatever he secures cannot be taken by human hands. Chosen one. You are now approaching a supernatural season of financial revelation. The resources connected to your calling were never misplaced, stolen, or permanently withheld. They were intentionally reserved, protected from premature release, kept away from those who could misuse them, and saved for the moment when your heart was ready to steward them with integrity. Scripture reminds us that no weapon formed against you will succeed. And that promise extends to every attempt to disrupt what God has established for your future. This is not the result of luck, timing, or circumstance. It is the unfolding of divine order. Anointed one. Those who walk in alignment with God do not spend their lives chasing provision. Provision arrives when heaven declares the season is complete. Right now, the signs are becoming clear that what has remained hidden is about to be uncovered, and what has waited is beginning to move forward. Remain attentive. Chosen one, because what you are receiving is far more than encouragement. It is a moment of spiritual awakening. There are seasons when heaven seems quiet, not because God has stopped speaking, but because his protection is accomplishing what words cannot. The financial uncertainty you have experienced, the unexplained delays, the opportunities that disappeared without warning, and the blessings that always seemed just out of reach were never meaningless events. Every closed door, every postponed answer, and every unexpected interruption served a purpose beyond what you could see. God was not withholding from you to diminish your future. He was preserving your inheritance until the proper time. What looked like loss was often divine protection. What felt like silence was heaven working behind the scenes. Now the season is changing, and what has been safeguarded is preparing to emerge according to God's perfect timing. I say this with authority and lived understanding. I have walked through seasons where I did everything right on paper and still watched provision pause at the edge. At the time it felt confusing, even unfair. But later I understood something sacred was happening behind the veil. There are realms you were never meant to be accessed by the wrong hands. There are resources attached to your calling that cannot be decoded, tracked, or siphoned by manipulation. What guards that space is not human effort, not strategy, not hustle. It is divine refusal. Heaven does not always fight. Sometimes it simply says no. And when God says no, every force that tries to push through begins to unravel itself instead. Chosen one. This is why some people who tried to figure you out spiritually or financially grew strangely quiet. This is why certain advisors, influence, or even spiritual voices lost clarity when your name came up. You were not blocked. You were sealed. Your provision was not delayed out of neglect, but withheld out of wisdom. There are blessings that cannot arrive early because they would be consumed, corrupted, or misused by a version of you that had not yet been refined. I know this because I have seen what happens when money arrives before maturity. It amplifies confusion instead of purpose. God refused to let that be your story. You see, chosen one, when heaven hides something, it is not hiding it from you. It is hiding it for you. The enemy always tries to rush access, but God perfects timing. What others could not understand was not resistance. It was rejection. They were not failing to connect. They were being denied entry. And the deeper they pushed, the more unstable their own footing became. Meanwhile, quietly, steadily, you kept moving forward. You kept building even when the numbers did not add up. You kept believing even when logic argued otherwise. That persistence was not wasted. It was recorded. I want to ground this for you in real life, not just prophecy. There was a moment in my own journey when I realized certain financial breakthroughs only came after character was tested, not when I prayed harder, but when I surrendered deeper, when I stopped asking, why not yet? And started asking, what are you preparing me for? That shift changed everything. Provision did not arrive loudly. It arrived correctly, and when it did, nothing could take it away. Chosen one. What is happening now is not exposure. It is release. The same unseen barrier that kept others out is now becoming a gateway for you. Scripture tells us that the secret things belong to the Lord. But what he reveals is given to his people. That revelation season is beginning. Your money was hidden because your calling is not small. Your future requires stability, clarity, and authority, not survival thinking. Heaven has been guarding your supply until your spirit could steward it without fear. This is the moment where silence turns into movement, where what was unreachable becomes accessible. Stay here with me. The next shift will explain why the waiting was necessary. Chosen one. There comes a point in every divine journey where you realize that delay was not denial and silence was not absence. It was strategy. Heaven does not rush what must last, and God does not release what cannot yet be carried. The reason your money was hidden is because your life is not built on impulse, but on assignment. What is coming to you is not a temporary breakthrough. It is a permanent repositioning. I want you to understand this clearly. The forces that tried to access what belonged to you were never really after the money itself. They were after leverage. They wanted control. They wanted insight into what keeps you moving forward while others stall. But there are systems God designs that do not respond to pressure. They respond only to alignment. When something is divinely sealed, effort cannot open it. Influence cannot unlock it. Only timing can release it. Chosen one. You may have noticed moments where opportunities almost came through, then suddenly vanished, or promises were made, then quietly withdrawn. At the time, it felt like loss. But looking back, you can see how those moments would have tied you to the wrong people, the wrong expectations, the wrong pace. God was not withholding provision. He was preventing entanglement. He was protecting you from agreements that would have cost more than they paid. I speak from experience here. I remember seasons where I thought one open door was the answer, only to watch it close without explanation. I was frustrated. I questioned my discernment. But later, when clarity came, I realized how narrowly I had been spared. What I thought was opportunity was actually distraction. What I thought was delay was actually mercy. And when the right door finally opened, there was no confusion, no chaos, no fear attached to it. There was peace. That is how you know the difference. Chosen one. This is the same peace you are stepping into now. The pressure you felt before, that sense of chasing, striving, proving is lifting. You are entering a season where provision recognizes you, where resources move without force, where the same hands that tried to grasp and failed are now watching from a distance, unable to interfere. The hidden phase is ending not because enemies stopped trying, but because heaven decided the time was right. There is a spiritual law at work here. What God hides cannot be stolen. What God delays cannot be manipulated. And what God releases cannot be reversed. This is why those who tried to push past boundaries lost clarity instead of gaining insight. They were not punished. They were simply refused. There are realms that do not negotiate. They do not explain. They simply stand. Chosen one, you are about to witness a shift where your financial life begins to make sense in hindsight. Connections will form naturally. Support will appear without begging. Ideas will come with provision already. This is not luck. It is order. You are being prepared to receive without fear and to hold without anxiety. Stay grounded. Stay surrendered. The next phase will reveal how this transfer moves from the unseen into the tangible and why it could only arrive now. Chosen. 1. There is a moment when the unseen begins to reorganize itself around your obedience, and you may not recognize it at first because it does not arrive with noise. It arrives with stillness. You may feel it as a quiet confidence, replacing anxiety, a strange calm where fear once lived. That is not coincidence. That is evidence. Heaven moves silently before it moves suddenly. I want to speak to the part of you that wondered if you missed something. If a wrong choice delayed your blessing, hear this clearly. You did not miss it. You were being preserved. There are financial flows that only activate when the soul is steady. God does not fund panic. He funds purpose. What you are stepping into now required you to become someone who could remain anchored even when outcomes were uncertain. I have lived this. There were days when I counted carefully, when I made plans that required faith more than math. In those moments, I learned something priceless. Provision responds faster to trust than to control. The more I tried to force answers, the more resistance I felt. The moment I released the need to manage everything, doors opened without effort. That lesson shaped how I now recognize divine movement. Chosen one. The resistance others felt when they tried to access what belonged to you was not random. It was law. There are spiritual systems that do not bend even under pressure. When someone tries to extract what is not theirs, the system does not fight them. It removes them. That is why confusion increased instead of clarity. That is why their confidence eroded. They were not battling you. They were colliding with order. This is important because it explains why your progress did not depend on their failure. You were not competing. You were being carried. While others unraveled, you advanced quietly. While they searched for formulas, you were being shaped. And now that shaping is becoming visible, the transfer you are approaching is not dramatic. It is stable. It feels like relief more than excitement, like certainty more than rush. Chosen one. You may notice your thinking shifting. You are less reactive. You pause before decisions. You sense timing instead of forcing it. That is maturity. And maturity is what unlocks stewardship. God does not just give money, He entrusts it. What is being released to you now comes with responsibility, not pressure. It will not dominate your thoughts. It will support your calling. Scripture reminds us that God is not mocked, and whatever is sown is eventually reaped. That truth works both ways. Those who tried to take without permission reaped confusion. You who waited without bitterness are reaping clarity. You stayed aligned even when it cost you comfort. That alignment is now paying dividends you could not calculate before. Chosen one. This phase is about embodiment, not announcement. You do not need to explain what is happening. You do not need to defend your growth. Let the fruit speak. Let the peace speak. The same silence that once guarded your blessing is now escorting it forward. Remain steady. The next part will show you how this hidden supply begins to surface in practical, unmistakable ways, and how to receive it without fear. Chosen one. When what was hidden begins to surface, it does not arrive as chaos. It arrives as order. You may expect fireworks, but instead, you will notice structure returning to areas that once felt unstable. Bills begin to resolve without panic. Ideas come with solutions already attached. Conversations open doors that used to feel sealed. This is how divine transfer often reveals itself. Not loudly, but unmistakably. I want you to hear this through lived truth, not theory. There was a season where I realized provision did not increase when I worked harder. But when I listened deeper, I stopped chasing every option and started discerning which ones carried peace. The moment I honored alignment over urgency, momentum returned. That is the shift you are stepping into now. Your money was hidden until your discernment matured. Chosen one. The unseen world responds to clarity. When your spirit knows who it serves, confusion loses access. This is why the pressure others felt when they tried to interfere never touched you the same way. You were not fighting battles, they were fighting. You were standing in a different position. Scripture tells us that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. And that includes strategies that rely on impatience and fear. As this transfer unfolds, you may notice people reappearing with curiosity, opportunities returning with different terms, and doors reopening under new conditions. Do not rush to interpret these moments emotionally. Pause. Ask what aligns, not what flatters. God is not restoring old cycles. He is establishing new patterns. The provision coming now does not trap you. It frees you. Chosen one. Wealth tied to assignment behaves differently. It does not demand constant attention. It supports flow. It creates margin instead of pressure. It gives you room to breathe, to choose, to say no without fear. That is why it could not arrive during survival mode. Survival distorts stewardship. Peace protects it. I remember the first time I recognized this difference in my own life. Money arrived. But instead of anxiety, there was calm. Instead of urgency, there was clarity. I did not feel the need to prove anything. I simply knew where it belonged. That is how you will know this transfer is divine. It will not hijack your emotions. It will stabilize them. Chosen one. Do not underestimate the simplicity of what is coming. We often imagine miracles as dramatic reversals, but sometimes the miracle is consistency. It is reliability. It is waking up without dread and planning without fear. These are signs of heaven's involvement. When God funds something, it lasts. You are being invited to receive without suspicion, to trust without grasping, and to move forward without over-explaining. The hidden phase taught you restraint. The revealed phase will teach you confidence. Let it unfold naturally. You do not need to announce it. Those who need to know will see it. Stay grounded. Stay present. The next part will show how to protect this flow, how to walk in it without attracting unnecessary resistance. and how to remain aligned as visibility increases. This season rewards patience, humility, and obedience, not noise. Let gratitude become your guard and wisdom, your guide as provision settles into place. Because what heaven establishes now is designed to remain stable, sustainable, and quietly unstoppable. Chosen one. When provision begins to stabilize, the true test is no longer faith for survival, but wisdom for stewardship. This is where many falter, not because they lack belief, but because they underestimate the responsibility that comes with answered prayers. What God is entrusting to you now is not just financial increase, it is influence, reach, and the ability to choose without fear. I want to be honest with you. I have seen seasons where blessing arrived faster than discipline, and it created stress instead of freedom. Money without structure amplifies noise. Money with alignment creates silence. That is why heaven waited. You were being trained to carry increase without losing yourself inside it. This season is not about indulgence. It is about order. Chosen one. You may notice a new restraint forming in you. You no longer feel the urge to explain your plans or justify your pace. You are selective with your energy. You protect your rest. These are not small changes. They are evidence that you are learning how to guard what God releases. Scripture reminds us that wisdom is the principal thing, and wisdom is what preserves increase. As this transfer continues, some will misread your stillness as distance or pride. Let them. You are not withdrawing out of fear. You are conserving out of clarity. There are conversations that no longer deserve access to your future. There are patterns you cannot afford to revisit. This is not isolation. It is refinement. I remember a time when opportunities multiplied suddenly, and I felt pressured to say yes to everything. That pressure nearly diluted my purpose. It was only when I learned to say no without guilt that momentum became sustainable. That lesson changed how I recognize divine opportunity. God never rushes you. He confirms you, chosen one. The resources aligning with you now will require boundaries, not walls, but filters. Everything that arrives does not belong. Everything that glitters is not assignment. Peace remains your indicator. If it costs your alignment, it is too expensive. This is how you protect what was hidden and is now revealed. You are stepping into a rhythm where provision flows, not spikes, where stability replaces volatility, where you can plan without bracing for loss. This is not ordinary financial growth. It is sanctified support, the kind that strengthens rather than distracts. Do not rush to upgrade appearances. Upgrade foundations, systems, habits, relationships. These are the containers that sustain blessing. God funds what is ordered. When structure is honored, increase remains. Chosen one. Stay teachable in this season. Gratitude will keep your heart light. Discipline will keep your path clear. You are not late. You are not behind. You are precisely where you need to be to steward what is arriving. In the next part, we will speak about visibility, how to remain protected as others begin to notice the shift, and how to move forward without attracting unnecessary resistance. What God is doing now is quiet, intentional, and deeply secure. Honor it. Trust the pace. Resist comparison. And remember that what grows quietly often lasts longest. You are being positioned for longevity, not applause. and heaven is far more invested in your future than your speed. Receive that truth. Breathe and stay aligned. Chosen. 1. As visibility increases, protection must deepen. Because not everyone who notices your rise is meant to access your life. This is the season where discernment matters far more than enthusiasm. As soon as provision begins to appear, it naturally attracts attention. Yet attention should never be mistaken for divine confirmation. Heaven is not opposed to your life becoming visible, but it does expect you to walk through that visibility with wisdom. I discovered this through experience. When my own season of uncertainty gave way to stability, I suddenly realized that many eyes were watching. It was not because I had taken a wrong path, but because people could finally see what they had once questioned. In that moment I understood something important. Lasting growth does not require constant explanation. It flourishes through quiet consistency. The less I felt compelled to justify what God was doing, the more securely His work continued to grow. Chosen one. Do not be surprised if familiar faces begin returning when they notice the momentum building around your life. Some will approach you with memories of the past, speaking of shared experiences and old connections. Before welcoming every relationship back into your life, take time to discern. Not every return is directed by God. Some people are drawn by curiosity rather than genuine restoration. The Lord is not restoring outdated patterns that no longer serve His purpose. He is establishing something entirely new. That is why Scripture declares that He prepares a table before you in the presence of your enemies. Notice that God does not always remove those who observe your blessing. Instead, He strengthens your position in front of them. You are not being asked to disappear, but you are being called to remain firmly grounded. What heaven is releasing into your life does not need to be defended or explained. As this divine transition continues, you may feel led toward a simpler way of living, fewer unnecessary conversations, a more intentional schedule, and stronger daily disciplines. This is not limitation, it is God's refining work. Whenever He entrusts someone with greater responsibility, He often removes unnecessary distractions. Quietness protects spiritual clarity. Chosen one. Resist every temptation to convince others that your breakthrough is genuine. You do not need human approval for what God has already established. Allow time to reveal the evidence. The abundance that has been hidden for this appointed season will unfold steadily, not to create admiration, but to establish lasting stability. Suddenness may occur, but sustainability is the true miracle. I want to ground this again. The most secure seasons of my life were not the loudest ones. They were the ones where everything worked quietly. Bills paid without stress. Plans executed without interference. Peace-guarded decisions. That is how you recognize divine backing. You may notice a shift in how you pray. Less begging. More gratitude. Less urgency. More trust. That is growth. That is evidence that fear no longer leads. When prayer changes, life follows. Chosen one. Stay alert, but not anxious. Observant, but not suspicious. You are not under attack. You are under assignment. God is teaching you how to walk openly while remaining protected. That balance is learned, not rushed. In the next part, we will speak about legacy, why this transfer extends beyond you, and how what is happening now will impact generations without pressure. What God hid was not only money, it was future influence. And now it is being positioned carefully, deliberately. and with eternal awareness, remain grounded in humility and expectation as this season unfolds around you slowly. Do not rush conclusions or compare your path to others nearby. What is assigned to you carries a different weight and timing. Trust the pace heaven has chosen. Rest is part of the process now. Obedience will feel lighter, not heavier. You are learning how to receive without striving and how to walk forward without fear. This season builds stability, wisdom, patience, confidence, clarity, discipline, faith, peace, endurance, strength. Chosen one. What is unfolding now reaches beyond your immediate needs and personal comfort. This transfer was never designed to stop at your hands. It carries generational intention. God often hides provision until he finds someone who will not only receive it, but steward it with vision. You are being trusted because your heart learned restraint before it learned expansion. You may already feel this shift in how you think about the future. Your prayers are no longer limited to survival. They stretch toward stability, impact, and longevity. That is not ambition. That is alignment. When heaven releases resources, it also releases responsibility, not as pressure, but as purpose. What comes next is not about accumulation. It is about direction. I want to speak personally here. The moment I realized blessing was meant to outlive me, my decisions changed. I stopped asking what felt good and started asking what would last. That question simplified everything. It filtered distractions, sharpened priorities, and clarified why certain things had to wait. That same clarity is forming in you now. Chosen one. This is how legacy begins quietly, not with announcements, but with consistency, with choices made when no one is watching, with integrity practiced when shortcuts are available. Scripture reminds us that a good inheritance is stored for children, and that principle applies not only to money, but to wisdom, stability, and example. You are setting patterns others will walk in. As provision settles, you may sense a call to build, to support, to create something that serves beyond you. Do not rush this. Legacy is not built through speed, but through faithfulness. The reason your money was hidden is because what you are meant to build requires maturity, not impulse. God did not want quick consumption. He wanted lasting construction. You may notice a deeper compassion forming, a clearer awareness of how easily things could have gone differently. That awareness will keep you humble. Humility is the strongest guard wealth can have. It keeps you teachable and grounded, even as influence grows. Chosen one. Resist comparison in this phase. Others may appear ahead or louder, but legacy is not loud. It is rooted. You are not here to impress. You are here to establish. The transfer you are experiencing is measured, intentional, and deeply aware of future impact. As you move forward, remain attentive to instruction. Legacy requires listening more than speaking. God will guide you in moments that feel ordinary, but carry weight. Trust those nudges. They are shaping something bigger than this season. In the final part, we will speak about integration. How to walk fully into this new reality without losing simplicity, faith, or peace. What God has hidden and now revealed is meant to bless you, but also to flow through you in ways you may not yet fully see. Remember this, chosen one. Nothing about this journey is random. Every delay refined you. Every quiet season trained you. Every unanswered prayer strengthened discernment. What you carry now is weighty because it was tested. Do not minimize it. Walk gently. Remain grateful. Stay obedient. And allow heaven to continue leading you step by step, because endurance is what turns provision into inheritance over time without rushing, proving, striving, forcing, controlling, comparing, doubting, fearing, hesitating, retreating, stumbling, or shrinking. Chosen one. This is the season where everything you have learned quietly must now be lived consistently. Integration is where many misunderstand the work of God, because it looks ordinary on the outside while everything inside has changed. You are not entering a phase of spectacle. You are entering a phase of embodiment. What was hidden is now revealed through how you live. Decide. Rest. Give. And move forward without fear. This is where faith becomes practical. You will notice that you no longer react the way you used to. Situations that once triggered anxiety now invite patience. Decisions that once required reassurance now come with clarity. That is integration. The blessing is no longer something you wait for. It is something you walk with. God did not just give you provision. He reshaped your posture toward it. I want to speak honestly from experience. The most transformative moments of growth did not happen when money arrived, but when peace stayed, when I realized I could plan without panic and give without depletion. I understood that the transfer had completed its work internally. That is what heaven was after all along. Not just your increase, but your stability. Chosen one. Simplicity will now protect you. You will feel less need to complicate your life. Explain your choices, or justify your boundaries. You know what aligns, and you trust yourself to honor it. This confidence is not arrogance. It is rootedness. When God completes a work, it settles you. As you move forward, remember that obedience will continue to guide your steps. Some days, it will feel subtle. Other days, it will feel firm. Trust both. Scripture teaches that the steps of the righteous are ordered, and ordering often happens quietly. You do not need to foresee everything. You only need to remain responsive. This is also a season of gratitude. Not performative gratitude, but lived appreciation. You will find yourself thankful for stability, for clarity, for rest. Gratitude keeps the heart light and the path open. It ensures that what was released remains welcome. Chosen one. Do not be surprised if new opportunities arise that feel aligned, rather than exciting. Not everything meant for you will feel dramatic. Some will feel obvious, even sampler. That is how you know you are no longer striving. Ease is not laziness. It is fruit. As this journey continues, protect your inner world. Stay close to what grounds you. Prayer may feel less urgent and more conversational. Faith may feel less like effort and more like trust. These are signs of maturity, not complacency. You are not the same person who entered the hidden season. You are not the same person who waited in uncertainty. What emerges now is someone who can receive without fear and release without loss. That kind of balance is uncommon, and it has been shaped through every season you have endured. Chosen one. Carry this confidence as you continue forward. What God chose to keep hidden was never intended to leave you confused. It was preserved so you could be fully prepared. Now that the season of preparation has accomplished its purpose, live with humility. Choose with discernment. Give with generosity. And rest with confidence. What heaven has placed in your hands will continue to flourish as long as your heart remains connected to the one who entrusted it to you. Chosen one, allow these words to settle deeply within your spirit and embrace them with unwavering peace. You have not missed your moment, nor have you arrived ahead of schedule. You are standing exactly where heaven intended you to be in your appointed Kairos season, where what was developed in secret begins to emerge in full view. Nothing that God reserved for you has ever been forgotten. It has been carefully protected until your character, your wisdom, and your faith were mature enough to carry it well. Anointed one, the divine transfer you have sensed is no longer a distant promise, it is already unfolding. There is no need to strive for it, justify it, or convince anyone of it. Whatever God releases in this season will come with divine order instead of confusion, with lasting peace instead of relentless pressure. Simply remain in alignment with His leading. Continue honoring God through the small moments of obedience that often go unnoticed. Gratitude will keep your heart receptive, and trust will keep heaven's provision flowing in its proper rhythm. I speak this blessing over your life today. May every need be met without fear. May every increase arrive without hidden sorrow. And may each step before you be directed with quiet confidence. Everything God is unfolding in this season is designed to strengthen your calling rather than pull you away from it. You are being upheld by His strength, sustained by His faithfulness, and reassured by His promises. Chosen one, keep moving forward with a peaceful heart, firmly rooted in faith and filled with hopeful expectation. If these words bear witness within your spirit, respond in whatever way reflects your agreement. Remain connected, or pass this message along to someone who is waiting for the same confirmation. Walk each day in peace. Walk with unwavering clarity, fully assured of this truth. The God who has begun His work in your life will faithfully bring it to completion.